version of that look like? How do we use things like Flipgrid and Screencastify to put surveys out there and then ask kids to respond to, and then we collect those and share them out to everybody, so their interactions and connections with their peers might not be live and in real time, but are still face-to-face. We are actively brainstorming and pursuing different avenues to keep kids engaged and to keep kids connected to each other.
Great, thanks, Flynn. So Kathy, I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, I don't know if you want to jump in and ask a follow-up at this point.
I would just add with the Xbox, and Kathy, I've got a 15-year-old boy who, you know, I may have to like physically pry that remote out of his hand on Monday. So I hear you on this. You know, whatever rules you had in place, we're clearly going to be a little bit more flexible these days, I think, but there should still be some rules around the Xbox use. And that being said, if you need to do something to maintain, you know, your own mental health, and that means that you're going to fudge a little bit by 15 or 20 minutes because by talking to your sister or your friend, you're going to be in a better space to be that calm, reassuring adult in their life, and maybe you let them play for that extra 15 minutes. But the rules and the routines still need to be there. Again, you may adjust them because we're inside so much, and that would be understandable. But there are other ways, and again, as Flynn and Jeff said, we are working on, as a school, trying to come up with lots of different ways for them to connect.
Thank you. We changed our rules during the break, and while we have pretty stringent screen time rules during the school year, they're home with very little to do with, you know, parks and beaches and everything being closed. So there's more time, and we've let them know that that's a special break time allowance, and it'll go back to normal once school starts. So we're kind of looking, I'm excited about the return to the structure of a school day that will minimize that. I think just as I look, you know, when I say to my boys, we'll call a friend, they have no interest in calling anyone on the phone unless it involves a video. I'm glad when they do it, but it seems like gaming is the default connector, which I guess it's a societal thing. So thank you. It was helpful to hear the answers. I appreciate it.
Okay, good. I noticed a question from Nicole out there. If a student wants to talk to me, could that be arranged? Absolutely. So again, I'm getting more tech savvy by the day. I now have on my email under the signature, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but a link to Calendly. Did I say it right, Jeff?
You did.
And you can click in there and it shows all the different spots where I'm available. And that's not just for your children, that's for you. So of course we're available to do that. And please also know that your child's advisor is going to be reaching out on Friday, Flynn, I believe. And there'll be more details to come around that, but we will be meeting as advisory once a week, and your child's advisor will be contacting your child on a regular basis, seeing your child, and checking in and seeing how things are going. So there will be plenty of opportunity for that.
Great, great, great. The next question on there, Laura, is we are a sports-heavy family. How do we handle our children when their social interactions are so reliant on their sports?
Diana, I know they are very reliant on the sports. It's a tough one. And that is probably how they are used to handling a lot of the, built-up emotion of the day is through that outlet, through sports. And the teams, that's just not going to happen. I think for your kids in particular, and anybody else whose kids are this heavily involved in sports teams, they're going to need to have that exercise scheduled into the day. And I guess we're going to have to get creative how you do that. There's going to be some online programs, it sounds like, through the athletics department, and really put that in, again, the routine, into your kids' daily schedule. I know they're not going to like that form necessarily, just not going out and playing lacrosse and playing hockey, but they need to get that physical outlet still. And then the connection, the social connection, which we all know is part of sports, hopefully we can get through this community.
I would just add to that you can expect stuff from both our PE department, and some of our coaches are going to start sending out some, here's what you can do with a lacrosse ball and your garage door, and here's what some drills that you can go through. And some of our fitness and athletic strength conditioning coaches will also be posting some stuff on core strength and building leg muscles and shooting, how to get your lacrosse shot faster, those kind of things. Those are all coming.
Great, 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 great. Next question is anyone aware of online platforms that provide closed captioning? Oh, Google Meet does. Thanks, Nicole. Has the middle school decided how late in the day the Zoom meetings can be? Maybe that's for you, Flynn?
Yeah, so we've had some conversation about teachers have asked, especially teachers with their own young children that are trying to think about how am I going to balance all of this. I got kids that I'll be homeschooling while I'm also trying to interact with my students. Can I think of the evening as an available time to connect with them via Zoom or for extra help sessions and things like this? That was part of the thinking around that study hall period that we plugged into the schedule. And so there may be some number of teachers that are looking to connect with kids in the evening. At the same time, we've also talked about how important it is for them to be sensitive to the fact that there are 3.5 available sort of screen time instructional hours in any given day. And if between homework or extra help sessions, we push that into the evening, all of a sudden kids' experiences can become really unbalanced. And those feelings of isolation and loneliness could be even exacerbated by the academic experience. So I've asked faculty just to be sensitive and aware of what they're asking kids to do beyond the prescribed hours for academics. I've not said that they should unequivocally not be in touch with kids in the evening time, but obviously not later or not significantly later than that study hall window that is carved out every night. So, I think also that we're going to grow into our practices and we're going to grow into this schedule. I think we have a lot to learn. That said, we are also starting at a bit of an advantage given the fact that we're coming off a 2-week spring break when so many other schools have been in session for the past week or two. And we've done a really good job at paying attention to how other schools are navigating and managing this. So I think we're set up for some early success. But our community is our community, and its needs are distinct to it. And so we will iterate as necessary. But for now, that's sort of how the teachers have been asked to proceed.
Great, thank you. Right now, there aren't any other new questions that have come in. And so just to give you some time to think about it, what I'd love to hear from all of you is, and right at the very end of our last forum, what came up with was, what are the parents anxious about? And what are they dealing with? And what do you bring to the table all the time? So didn't know if any of you want to bring up any things that you're worried about or your anxieties, or how do you deal with them? Or if you want to talk about how do you talk with your children if they're anxious, and ways to talk to them. So as a psychologist, I was always trained that you have to be comfortable with silence, right? And you have to let the other people go first. In this Zoom world, maybe it's not so easy to do that. Another thought is, we would love to bring these forums to you perhaps on a weekly basis for a little while. Oh, and there's a question in, and so again, we would even maybe listen to whatever ideas and thoughts you had and make them more focused. So if there were specific areas that you wanted these forums to focus on, we could do that. Or we could just keep them open in like the Adam Rohde Town Hall style, where you can just come in and ask questions. So here's another question in the chat. Wondering if it would be useful for parents to connect with each other from advisory, so we are not only connecting through old social groups, and can share what's happening with our kids in school.
I just responded on the chat, but can say this, Lenora, that the pretty soon you're going, as my email forecasted, you're going to be inundated with a number of Google Classroom emails and memos. Teachers will be including all the parents on their own Google Classrooms, and advisors are also setting up Google Classrooms to keep the advisories connected, and parents will have access to that as well. Advisors have been asked to be in touch both with advisees collectively and individually, and with the parents of their advisees collectively and individually. And so if that ends up kickstarting some amount of sort of offline advisory parent community gatherings, that's fine. And I would encourage parents to help spearhead those. It's also an idea for me to take back to our advisory committee, on which Laura sits, and to ask that committee to think about what are some ways that advisors can create forums that are just really meant specifically for the parents in each group. I think that that's a great idea, and we're setting ourselves up to do just that.
All right, we have another one. Thanks, Flynn. Says, not a social emotional question, but the link in my Google Classroom email from Gus's advisory didn't work. It returned error messages. I did email Mr. Gus's directly to let him know, but wondered if other parents had success getting logged in /on.
Can I just, I haven't heard anything, and I don't know if any other parents here have, but I just because the purpose of the gathering here was for us to really focus on the social emotional stuff. There's a part of me, Kathy, that's really worried that it'll be easy for us to get bogged down, especially in the technical troubleshooting around all the systems that we're using. And so let me do a little bit of research about that. I can ask Sam to help me figure out if that is a wider issue or one that was only affecting James's page, and try to get out ahead of that. So I'll look into that for you.
Great. And this one, again, is maybe for Flynn and for Adam to hear, but says two quick things. I thought Flynn's demo schedule was really great. I really loved his comments and tips breaking tasks down into steps. Would love to see this in other divisions, including high schoolers. I do worry with 4 kids about how to manage what is going to seem like a massive flow of information. This is what is making me anxious. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I'd just say we totally understand that, and we are sympathetic to that. And one of the things that I can't remember now, this is my 3rd Zoom call, but if I said it or didn't say it, but we're going to send out a survey to all parents at the end of the first week of remote learning, and we want to hear back from you on what's working, what's what did you not like, what's causing anxiety. What did your children struggle with? And there'll be lots of opportunity. And we really are, this is an iterative process. We want to hear back from all of you. If you feel like you're getting overwhelmed with emails, or it's easier to get them at night than in the morning, we will make changes along the way. But we've spent, and I think Flynn mentioned this, we've spent a lot of time looking at other schools and what they've been doing. There's schools on the West Coast are 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks in front of us in terms of how far they're into their remote learning. We've learned a lot of lessons from them. We've been actively watching the Greenwich Public Schools, who are also in their 2nd week of remote learning, and following the communications they've been putting out to their parent body as to what's working and what's not. And it's been really interesting to watch them course correct along the way. And so as they've made changes, we've said, oh, this is what happened when they did this. We can avoid that problem because they've already run into it. So totally understand that this is feeling potentially overwhelming, and week 1, if nothing else, and it's really important to reiterate this to all of you. Week one of this learning, remote learning, is about getting the systems working. It's about making sure we're able to communicate and reconnect and be part of this community. It is not going to make or break the difference of your kid getting into college or not. And we all need to take a deep breath and not worry about that, and just spend time getting the systems up and running. And, you know, if you find yourselves in a fist fight with your 15-year-old, everybody needs to take a step back. It's not a big deal. We will move forward. They're not failing them in their class if they don't hand back 3 math problems. Let us ramp into this and go at it. Go slowly to go fast.
Yeah, and I need to say to everybody over and over again, this is going to be an imperfect process, right? We are learning as we go here. Just like you are learning as you go, just like your children are learning as they go. And so in a process that is imperfect, we have to learn how to be gentle with ourselves and slow down and realize that we're not going to do everything perfectly, and it doesn't need to be done perfectly, right? I love the expression, perfect is the enemy of good. And we need to make sure that we're trying to do a good job. And if we want to have perfect effort, I'm all about perfect effort. But perfectionism is going to be a problem here, and it's going to create anxiety that we're not doing everything that we're supposed to be doing at every second of every minute of every hour of every day. And so I really want to encourage all of you as parents to take that deep breath yourselves and recognize that we are all learning, and that in the first couple of weeks it's going to be imperfect. We're going to have bumps, and we're going to find our way. But let's find our way as a community. Let's come together here again, and let's talk about what's not working. Hey, this isn't working. This isn't great right now. Or, hey, this has been really great. I've tried this. I've done this at home. This has been super helpful. Here's a great suggestion for the rest of our community. And that's what I really see behind this whole idea of forums, is bringing us all together so that we can share our ideas and our hopes for where we're going to go. The last couple of comments that have come in have all been thank yous. You're so welcome. I mean, it's fortunate that we work at a school that really considers the whole child and puts social emotional learning just as important as academic learning. And, you know, from top to bottom, this is what I hear teachers, I hear administrators all the time talking about, and that's one of the real gifts that we have here at this school. So you are welcome for this effort. Any other questions for our mental health team, or for Adam, or for Flynn, or for Marshall? And thank you for joining us, Marshall. Or we have Tom Hart on this call, who's the head of the tech department. I'm sure he can answer some questions if somebody wants to ask him a quick question. If you want to, you can unmute your mic, and if not, we'll. There's Tom.
Hi, everyone. I answered in the thread before. If you do have any technical issues, please feel free to email support@gcs.net. It's the quickest way to get a hold of us, and the turnaround's pretty quick.
Great. Adam and Flynn, I've actually made a couple of mindfulness videos that help parents deal with their own anxiety. One of them actually mirrors one that I'm giving out to the high school students on how to improve their attention and concentration during this time, especially as we're going to be online way more. So how do they actually improve their attention and not get easily distracted or zone out? So I don't know if there's a forum or a platform in a way that I can share some of these mindfulness meditations for parents so that parents can actually work with their own anxieties.
We put together each division has that Google site that's a landing page for communications and resources, and
like the Learning Hub.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And so I think it'd be great. I can easily create a band on that site that I've already given everybody a link to, into which we can drop those resources for parents to follow for themselves, or for them to facilitate for their kids, or for them to do together. So along those lines, there was one question, I'm not sure who it was from, a little further up the thread, DEO06SA, asked about the daily must-dos.
Oh, I missed that. Thank you.
Yep, there was some question, or there's some amount of must-dos for grades 3 to 5. What are the must-dos for middle schoolers? Here's how we've been sort of thinking about this. The middle school has one of the advantages that we have is that every single kid has already been given a computer and knows how to use that computer. That is, I mean, that's an advantage and a disadvantage at times, but for the sake of remote learning, it's a real advantage. And they're also, by and large, old enough that they are capable of, should be capable of managing their time at least in small chunks, right? And so I wouldn't trust a middle school kid, especially a 6th grader, at least not as much as I would an 8th grader, to just sort of go into the room and close the door and for 3.5 hours attend to the schedule that they've been given and do that successfully and in good faith for every single day of the week. And so I think giving kids the space to practice some autonomy and to manage their own schedule and their own time will be important, but balancing that space with some accountability, checking in on them every 30 to 40 minutes and making sure that they're still on task, that the task that they're on is a different one than the one that they were on when you checked in on them before. And if it isn't, how much longer they expect they'll be on that before they transition. I would also say a must-do is trying to think about the best way in your home to create a functional work environment for your kid. Right now, we are isolated down the Jersey Shore in a home that is built for vacationing. And so I have put together this makeshift work environment that is 2 nightstands pushed next to each other and jammed into the corner of a wall. And so it's not ideal, but it looks like an office. It looks like a work environment. And helping your kids create that at home will help their minds shift into a certain mindset when it's time for them to sit down in that space and get to work. Likewise, it'll help them shift out of that mindset when they get up and move away from that space. So that's another must-do that I think would be worthwhile. And then the last one is this. There was a reason that the condensed version of the schedule that we shared, if you saw in sort of fine print, it said, this one's for the fridge or something like this. Having a visual and sort of public artifact in the house that is a reference tool, I think will help take some of the onus off of you parents and put it back on the school when you're trying to hold up the expectations for your kids. So rather than saying, you know, I am declaring as your mother or your father that it is time for you to go do work, you can say, the school has declared that this is the time for you to go do work, and that schedule is posted in a public place. You're not the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. I'm happy and quite used to being the bad guy. And so please feel free to scapegoat me and that schedule in that way. And then also the last thing I'll say as a must-do is being realistic about what is right and necessary and appropriate for your kid individually, and count on and rely on us to work with you and work with your child to make sure that their individual needs are being met. For some kids, that's going to mean I'm rocketing through this work that I'm being given and I need more. And so in those cases, especially in specific classes, be in touch with those teachers or be in touch with your child's advisor. In other cases, it might be, my kid is totally overwhelmed by this stuff and it is coming in small chunks, but the format is just so far from what they are comfortable with or used to that they're really, really struggling and they're not able to produce in the way that I thought that they would. Be upfront about that and count on us to also adjust our expectations accordingly. We want to, especially over the course of the first week or so, and for however long that we settle into this, make sure that each kid is getting exactly what they need, and that those needs are appropriate for them developmentally and individually.
Great. Another question did come in from Stacy, which she asks, would you recommend the children doing their school day in their rooms or in a communal space? So
Yeah. So I recommend, if possible, creating sort of a hybrid. I think it's great if they have their own work environment that is in their room, so long as like their bedroom door is open and you can pass by that bedroom door with some degree of frequency, and not be perceived as, you know, a spy, right? I think it would be a mistake if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 kids to try to set your middle schooler up at the dining room table with 3 other kids around, and then you're on the other end of the table trying to work, or your spouse is trying to work. There'll just be too much distraction there. However, if you only have 1 or 2 kids and they're both in the same division, or they're in different divisions but following similar schedules, having them work in a more public space could be totally feasible. And so I think that the answer to that question really depends on the dynamics of your family and the dynamics of the environment that you are able to make available for them to work. But you don't want it to be so public that they're distracted, nor so private that they distract themselves without you knowing.
I would just add to, there will be times, obviously, in some people's homes where both parents are maybe trying to do their own Zoom call, and there needs to be quiet in that time, and you may need to utilize bedrooms if each child has their own bedroom. I would like them, however, if you can, to not be in bed. So if you can do something makeshift like Flynn did, I don't care what it is, the nightstand, if there's a desk in there, whatever it is, that there's a dedicated workspace that is separate from comfy, cozy bed.
And this is so important, super important, because if they're on their bed, then they begin to equate the bed with work, right? And if their brain thinks bed and work, it doesn't think bed and sleep. So if they're going to work in their room, they got to get off their bed. And this should go for any homework ever, ever, ever. They should not be on their bed, right? And they wonder why they have sleeping problems is because the brain is using the bed as a workplace and not as a sleep place. So great point, Laura. Totally agree. Get them off their beds, but put them in a workspace in their room.
I also intend to provide some guidelines for the kids in sort of like a Monday morning meeting video format that I hope that they'll start their week with next week, and I'll continue to do that on Monday mornings. And perhaps between, but Monday morning meeting, that's one of our rituals, and I'd like for us to keep to that. I think rituals, as I said, are going to be really important. And one of the first messages, if not the first message that they'll get, besides "welcome back" and "isn't this weird" and "I miss you and wish I could see your face," is, look, you're going to need to make sure that you have an appropriate environment, and here are some guidelines for that.
Great. Quick tech question. My kids will be sitting in a shared office for online schoolwork. They will use headsets for online classes. Tom, do you know if we need special headset with microphone for them to interact online?
No, you don't need anything special. I mean, you can see I'm wearing just regular headphones and a microphone. Those you can pick up online on Amazon or anywhere. Or you can use the speaker built in and the microphone on the laptop. And if they're in obviously close connection to each other, the headphone and microphone make it a lot easier to work in the same room with someone. Hope that answers the question.
Did somebody try to jump on a second ago and ask something? Did I miss them? Okay. All right, everybody, then we will let you go. Thank you so much for joining us. Please shoot us emails. Let us know your thoughts, future directions, what you felt about this. Would love to hear it all. And please, everybody, stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.